Hi, I am Adam Gross, and I've lost my mind, clearly. And then we've got Bryan Dam. Hey, Bryan.
I never had it.
Plus, we've got a whole bunch of other cool folks. So thanks for joining us at very, very, very short notice. And so what Bryan and I just decided over Discord about 1 minute before you guys all got on here was, hey, let's. I think I talked him into it. He's been drinking a little bit this evening. Said, hey, let's see if we can maybe get some clients to do some talking over Cloud Management Gateway and look at options for co-management when you're doing things over the VPN, stuff like that, for all of our folks working from home. So yeah, that's kind of what we're going to do. And I'm sorry, I am trying to spin up all of my resources. We've kind of started everything before I got, I'm seeing that I don't have internet connectivity. That's what I'm trying to sort out here. So Bryan, fill some time while I do that. You should share out, share out Rob's.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I was going to start with the fact that, all of a sudden in the last, for no reason at all, in the last couple of days, everyone's suddenly interested about, hey, what about my coworkers work from home? How do I make that happen? And so we were kind of spitballing some different ideas, and then I was literally in the middle of writing a blog post, and then Rob York, of course, went and screwed that all up by doing it much better than I would have done. And so if you haven't seen it, I'm going to go ahead and paste this of course, everyone here has, but let me share my screen here. And he just goes down the list. And before you all yell at me, and yes, you need split tunneling. I mean, and that's an interesting, does anybody here really worried about actual split tunneling from a security perspective? I looked at that this afternoon, and I only play a network admin on, I don't know, TV. I'm not on TV, but whatever I'm on, that's where I play a network admin. But I looked into it, and I just don't, I don't see I kind of get it, but in the zero trust model we have these days, I just don't understand what the argument is against enabling split tunneling.
Well, so Bryan, let's talk about what in the world is split tunneling for those of us who don't give a flip about networking and have ever even looked at this.
You would like to define the relationship? Yeah,
why not?
Yeah, so I mean, you have full tunneling and split tunneling, and I'm sure different vendors refer to those as different things, but the main concept is what's the traffic flow, right? And so when you're connected to a VPN, so if you're connected to a VPN and you have full tunneling, then all of your traffic, every single packet is flowing through that VPN, and ostensibly the whole point of that is so it's flowing through your organization's security stuff, right? So they can do deep packet inspection, they can make sure you're behind their proxies, so on and so forth. Now the downside of that is when you need to get a crap ton of content, like for instance updates, right? You're talking gigabytes of data times everyone, and that's the shit show that's going on right now. And so split tunneling in theory says, well, okay, instead of just routing all the traffic, how about I just route the traffic that actually needs to be local, right? So again, this is going to feel legacy, but when you talk about file, this is where it all started, right? I have an on-premise Exchange server, I have an on-premise file server, and my people are going to go home and they need access to it. Well, okay, great. So why don't you just tunnel that traffic through the VPN, and then everything else? Well, they have a great internet connection, so why don't we just use that, right? So if they want to surf Reddit, why would we route Reddit through our own? Exactly, right? Keeps YouTube the hell off the VPN. That is what split tunneling is. It's full tunneling. All the traffic goes through over your VPN connections into your organization's network, and then back out of your organization's network, right? It's a double hit. Whereas split tunneling is, let's split that tunnel so that only the traffic that needs to come from the organization comes from it. Everything else just goes off the normal internet. The obvious reason to do that is to lower all this non-essential traffic, if you will, to not route it over to not clog up your precious resource of your internet connection for your organization. Now, I got some pushback and said, well, it's a big security hole, and I kind of looked at it and I try to dig in, and again, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert here, but the idea is like, well, if you split tunnel, then you have this machine that's on the internet, right, unprotected, just out in the wild, and yet it has this protected connection into your network, right? And so that's, that becomes this vector for infecting your internal network. And I kind of get it. Like I understand the rationale, and yet I think we're in a day and age when everything is a vector, right? Like just your computer is going to go off the network and it's going to get infected and then come back on the network. So it just seems like a weird thing. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be the military. Yeah, there's some places where it's like it has to be that way, and I get it.
Yeah. So I mean, so some of the stuff that has come out recently though has been this idea that if your idea of securing your network is having tunneling for VPN, like if that's your only control on your endpoints, I mean, are you really secure? Because I know for us, we allow users to turn off the VPN if they need to, because there's times where the VPN does not behave properly and we don't want it to do what it's doing. So, I don't know, like if we let our users turn off the VPN, then how are we actually securing them? Like, what's the point there? So, like, there should definitely be another mechanism for keeping your other defense in depth, right? So more things helping protect your devices than just your VPN and making sure it's tunneling back. So the moment you let that device out the door, you already were opening it up to security holes. Tunneling your internet traffic seems hardly to be the main concern you should have over device security, right?
Yeah, and again, I'm not a network security guru, but I know. I mean, I know the people where I used to work are pretty smart at what they do, and they were like, yeah, split tunneling is not a big problem, and part of it because we don't trust that system. But I get it, right? There are, even when we talked about this, people are like, well, it's a standard, right? Like O'Reilly is saying, it's a standard in military and government and those contractors. So I get it, right? And that's where CMG. Does CMG come in? No, CMG doesn't help you there either. Basically, without split tunneling, you're screwed. And we had I had that argument, not really an argument, but it happened the other day. Guys like, how do I solve this problem? But I can't turn on. I can't turn on split tunneling. So how do I not route information through my organization but not enable split tunneling? I'm like, well, yeah, good luck, right? Like that's a showstopper.
Yeah. All right. So Bryan has been buying me some time, and I feel like I'm squandering on this stall here, but I'm hoping I can get it. There we go. Thinking I can get it sorted. I had to reboot my domain controller here in the lab because it's not liking me. And
so Jonathan, right? You're saying, and this, a couple people have had that response, right? Let's just not just like in the military, they just don't give you access.
Well, yeah, that's essentially what it boils down to. I don't know if you can hear me now.
We can. Yep.
I was having issues earlier. Yeah, a lot of it is because they have these very heavily entrenched. This is how we're going to do it, and the problem with those is that you need to rebuild the castle inside the castle and then get rid of the other castle. So doing this,
I hear you like castles.
Is basically because it's this whole concept of we're going to take identity and make it the perimeter, but organizations, they need to do a lot of stuff to get ready for that. And so you can't just easily say, all right, we're going to start down that road, and at the same time, we're going to turn this off. And it's not a fast journey. It's not a quick journey, contrary to what some people might tell you. It takes time, and so it's not something you can just say, "Oh, we're going to turn that off right now."
Yeah.
All right, so I've got my lab sort of spinning here. So I should have co-management enabled already in my lab, and so we're not going to walk through like actually configuring those things. I should also have a cloud management gateway set up, but let's at least talk about this for a moment here. So, okay, so first of all, I'm running ConfigMgr current branch, the latest whatever 1910, I believe, and I've just gone through the setup wizard to enable co-management. I've also got the Intune enrollment piece configured here so I can actually autopilot devices into Intune. And I've also got all of my sliders slid over here. And so one of the things that we're looking at here is the, well, yeah, I'm testing. I'm looking at stuff, right? So the great thing about this is the way I understand it is that you can still deliver, like, so let's talk about client apps for a minute. This is the easy one. So client apps, you can deliver Intune apps or you can deliver ConfigMgr apps. Well, the machine is running ConfigMgr. If I've got an Azure AD join machine and I want to manage it with Intune, I can, during autopilot, I can install the ConfigMgr client on that machine, and then I can enroll it into ConfigMgr and co-manage an Intune device in ConfigMgr, and then I can deploy Intune apps to it either from Intune, or I can deploy apps to it in general either from Intune or from ConfigMgr. And so same thing, I've got Windows Update policy, so I can govern how the Windows updates get applied either from ConfigMgr or from Intune on this device or on any of the devices that are co-managed. And so you can also even, if I wanted to slide this to pilot, so if you slide any of the sliders to pilot, and then in here you can, in staging, you can then target each of those sliders to an individual collection that you want to test those particular things on. So you don't have to do it. This is a really great thing with the staging piece here that allows you to slice and dice this up a little bit. So I'm just going to leave those where they are. So that's kind of, I've got co-management enabled and enabled for all of my devices. And then also as part of that, whenever you're configuring your co-management, you can enable a cloud management gateway as well as part of that process. And so I think there's this, at least my feeling anyway, is that there is this mysterious, thing about the cloud management gateway that people are just like, I don't know what that is. It's out there and it's a thing and I'm not sure. So it's simply just an Azure resource that gets spun up.
I think a lot of it comes from internet-based client management, right? Like I tried reading those docs. And I just wanted to basically end my life.
Like, yeah. It
was like,
well, so inside my ConfigMgr client there, we could see the you could see the name of here. I'll fix my RDP session here. Okay, so you can see the name of the cloud service. All right. So then inside of Azure, I can go and I can see all of my cloud services, and I can see that I have the same named service here, and all that is a remote. It's just a server spinning up in the cloud, and in fact, you can enable RDP to it. And so I'm just gonna give this a shot, just because we're here, and why not? Oh, I don't have a certificate for it. Oh no. Okay, that's fine. And I got to give it a stronger password.
I hate to interrupt and make mention of the fact that it is very unsupported to do anything to the CMG beyond just troubleshooting once you log into it. I've seen many a customer attempt to install their security software on it and then wonder why it disappeared.
No, really?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so we definitely are just doing this as a proof of concept, just to illustrate what is going on here. But essentially, and I don't know that I even did the roles correctly here. I probably should have dropped that down as I did this.
But it is like, it's key, right? Like the way I've always understood CMG, and you guys can fight me on this, is it's internet-based client management. It is that. It's just you're running a VM and you're running a VM. Sorry, you're running a VM running an app proxy for your internet-based client.
That's all it is. It's just a server. Look, it's a standard A2 V2 VM running in Azure that just automatically gets spun up and provisioned. It's got an IP address and it's got a proxy service running on it it's just got IIS running, and you can manage it and do things with it. It's just a machine. So that's all I really want to say.
Can we change the background? Can we change the background?
Special about that's key. Yeah, probably. And I've probably hosed it up by messing up this remote desktop settings, but we'll see how that goes. So that's really all you've got here from the CMG perspective. And so the CMG is the proxy service, but then, and I misstated here, you don't set up the CMG when you're setting up co-management. You set up your cloud distribution point. You can configure your cloud management gateway to act as a cloud DP when you set it up. Sorry, I was thinking the wrong thing there. So you have to set both of these things up, configure both of them. Pretty straightforward configuration. You can even tell it you want more than one VM in the cloud, and it will create more than one there. There's some special things you do here with your certificates. So depending on if you're using a CA, on-prem CA from AD, you can generate a certificate there, or you can use a public wildcard cert, or even, it doesn't have to be wildcard, it's just easier to do, especially lab-wise. And then depending on the type of cert that you create, it would then generate a specific deployment name here. So this one is telling me that I'm using a CA-generated cert because this is giving me a deployment name of a cloudapp.net name for it. So then my full URL to the proxy would be ASD cmg1.cloudapp.net. And I want to say, if I go back over here, so once you set up your cloud management gateway and you go back into your co-management settings, this is where you get the command line that's listed there should include that cloudapp.net address, which is my proxy for the cloud management gateway. That kind of all makes sense? Just going to look at the comments to see if the comments are shaking their heads. Okay, so
one question.
I don't know why my co-management settings take so long to spin up, but here you go. Okay, so then I've got a public URL that I set up on my domain, and I've toggled back and forth on CA cert versus wildcard cert, public versus private, and it changes the way you can configure these. But essentially, this is an address that points to my CMG as to tell my client where its gateway is. Does that kind of make sense so far? You'll have to speak up because I'm not, or Brian will have to read the comments to make sure I'm not missing anything there. But okay.
I'll go for it.
If you don't mind me commenting, so my personal preference on is doing a custom domain name, but doing a specific certificate for that name issued out of a public CA, just because as you do things down the road, it gives you a little more flexibility. I want to install this random client over here. I don't now need to worry about, I need to load my certificate chain. And at the same time, wildcard certificates, not such a great idea from a security perspective if you can avoid them.
Yes. Would you do a subdomain, Riley? Like, would you do cmg.myorg.com?
Yeah, well, one of the limitations with the app service is that the subdomain would have to be mycmg.orgname.mydomain.com, because the subdomain has to be unique.
Yes. Okay. And that's a good point. I'm so used to just playing around with it in the lab, and it's just, I'm not paying for public non-wildcard certs. That's a hassle. So, but when you use the wildcard cert, you still have to give it a full. You can still customize that URL that you generate there. Okay, so then once you've got that set up, it's kind of the next piece is, okay, so number one, you've got a VM now in Azure that is generating some cost. And if Rob was in here, Rob would tell us how much that cost is, and he looks like he already left, so I'm really sad. but the
pennies a client.
Pennies. And you know, it's one of those things where I was thinking about it and saying, you know, why does Microsoft even bother charging us for it if it's so cheap? Just, you know, why don't you just say it's free? And I think people will just start adopting it a lot more, but that's a whole different thing. So the Cloud Management Gateway itself is really just proxying the traffic. It's when you then want to host content on the cloud distribution point that I think it becomes more costly, because then you've got clients pulling content from there. And so let's look at that for just a moment. So if I go into my site configuration, distribution points down here, it's been like a couple of weeks since I've even opened the console, so this is fun. Okay, so you can see it's just listed as another distribution point, and I can look to see information about it, and it will even tell me, you know, I know I've got content pushed to it. I don't know why everything's taking so long to open when I open them, but so I can see I've got all this content sitting there. So it's just a regular DP sitting in the cloud. All right, well, that's cool. So then I've got a VM here that is currently on my domain. But now here's the difference, at least. So you're going to have to imagine that we have VPN enabled, because I don't have VPN in my lab. But what I want to demonstrate is that we can I know what I want to say, but I can't seem to say it. Sorry. Okay, so while my client is on the domain, it's hitting my distribution point that's on my domain. But once it goes over VPN, it's a question of, well, where do I want that client to pull its traffic from? So if you don't have split tunneling enabled and your client is connected with VPN, then the client is still going to identify itself as being on the domain. So if you look at the article that Rob pointed out here, or wrote here.
And crucially, yeah, on the intranet.
Correct. Let me see. It's at the top, isn't it? I was looking at it on my phone. Okay, so
yeah, that's right there.
The client evaluates is internet equals 1 or is internet equals 0, and this is the decider that tells it, does it need to go to CMG or not? Well, yeah. If you don't have split tunneling enabled, though, your client isn't going to know to go out to the internet. It's going to still route everything as if it's sitting on your domain. And so what Rob goes through here is setting up a different boundary for your VPN. You could even, so in our environment, we went into AD and we configured AD sites to, sorry, somebody's asking for the link. Here you go, Jeremiah. So our network team created new AD sites for us for each VPN concentrator at each of our facilities. And so now when a client connects to a particular VPN concentrator, it gets put into a particular boundary group, and it has specific resources assigned to that boundary group. And so then by doing that, by segregating that traffic and identifying that this is VPN versus this is on-prem, then you can do this, where you can configure your boundary group to prefer cloud-based sources over on-prem sources. And
but before you skip over that, right? So,
yeah.
So for me, the whole mind-blowing thing is, scroll down to that setting, right? That setting got renamed in 1902. It was prefer cloud distribution point over on-premise distribution point or something like that, right? It was along those lines, and I knew that existed, but in 1902 they revamped this to say cloud-based sources over on-prem sources, and specifically that includes Windows updates, or includes update data.
Yes, exactly. And so that's definitely a key point here. So you don't need to publish your security updates to your cloud management or to your cloud distribution points, because Windows Update content for cloud managed devices will pull content from Windows Update from the cloud. So, I mean, if we think about, and Bryan, you're the mastermind behind Windows updates, the security updates and things. But when we look at security updates in ConfigMgr, all you're doing is creating a list of approved updates that clients can install. We're not saying you can only install this particular media that we're hosting for you. We're just saying here's a list, and we're providing it to you so you're not going to the internet by default. But if you're already on the internet, go get it from the closest source so that you're not pulling content all the way through the tunnel, right?
That's the dream.
That is the dream.
I mean, if you go click on an update, right? Like go to software update, and just go to the properties of an update, and I don't care which one, right? You'll see the content right there.
Yeah, it tells you where it's going to go get it from the internet, right?
Yeah, and when you look at the logs, this basically becomes, you'll actually see it like distribution point equals this, right? It's just returning, it's the content lookup. And so the key thing, whether you're using a VPN or a cloud management gateway, is that the client still needs to reach an MP, right? It needs to reach an MP. It needs to do a content lookup, and that MP needs to return it a list of content that includes this URL that points to Microsoft's or the Windows Update, CDN.
Way to go. Yeah, we got it.
Right. And so that source path, or something very, very much like it, is exactly what you'll see in the logs as your DP. And the trick is to, I mean, I'm not even going to pretend to fully understand how the client prioritizes and orders what source it uses, right? We really need another deep dive, I think, at MMS for that. But that setting that Rob talks about, and that blew my mind. Thanks again, Doug. Changes that prioritization, right? So it's still going to get. Yeah, that's right.
I can explain really fast how that prioritization works because it's really simple. It's actually not super complicated.
10 seconds, just because
the client looks to see if a CMG is in the boundary group. If the CMG is in the boundary group, it uses the cloud source. If not, it doesn't. No, it's nothing complicated.
Oh, well, okay, fair enough at that level. But I mean, but then you get down into, if you go the full stack, right? Not just CMG versus not CMG. Like it goes down to it prefers sites over IP. Like if you got and you got peer cache,
yeah.
I remember
you're talking about client content.
Yeah, exactly. If you want to go how does the client resolve the full stack of client lookup? It's painful, and this setting alters that. Right at the end of the day, this setting alters that logic to say, oh, you got this list of you could conceivably get this whole list of content sources. It could be a DP, could be a peer. Microsoft itself is one of those things, and all this setting is doing is saying we're going to switch the priority, right? If you so it needs to be part of the list, which is why when we're probably talking, when you make that deployment, you have to say, hey, let clients, if they can't get the content to a DP, let them get it from Microsoft, because that's what gets it into the list of distribution points of sources. And then that setting will say, okay, but then also we prioritize or prefer Microsoft as a content source versus our distribution point. And Bryan Mason is pointing out quite right. I mean, the other thing you can do is there's a new option when in your ADRs is just to not download the content in the first place, right? So you can cannot have, if you want every client in the entire organization to go straight to Microsoft, you can now simply just never download it, right? And that wasn't an option before. There was no way to deploy an update without the UI forcing you to download the content into a deployment package. I'm not saying it's a downside, but the key thing to understand that is then it's not available for you're not downloading it at all. So if you have people that are still in the office, they're all going to download it from. They're going to download it from Microsoft too. If you don't have it on any distribution point, if you don't download it at all, then they're all going to go to Microsoft, which you may not want.
Correct.
And then part of this all came out of people like, okay, well, how do I get only my VPN clients? I only want them to download it from Microsoft, and people were spitballing, well, you could create a specific distribution point just for your VPN clients, and you will have to manage your content so that update content does get on that DP and configure failback in a bunch of ways, and then just by luck, hopefully they don't have a DP available, so they'll go to Microsoft, right? And that's, to me, struck me as like, that's a lot of overhead. Like, I don't want a distribution point that I have to kind of manage to make sure that it gets everything but my update content. Like, I'm just too lazy for that. We should just have a setting. And then Cody Mathis was like, well, that exists, dumbass.
Yes, that last word was the key one.
So, Bryan, okay, you're talking ClickFunnels Office. Oh, I see. Okay, I was thinking Microsoft Office.
Yeah. Right. So, so Bryan's making some good points here. So, it's absolutely an infrastructure, and you have to look at the entire holistic picture of your environment. So you have to look at your network concerns, your security concerns, the types of pipes you've got, the types of connectivity you've got. So, like, we've got some really remote sites that have to traverse, a couple of states to come back through our VPN tunnel to get back out. And it's like, why do we force them to do that? Why don't we just allow these machines to just go, to go out to the internet and go, the closest route out? And, I think that's definitely a thing to consider. But if you've got your clients sitting in an office that has a small DSL connection, and you need to manage the speed at which that content's coming, or you want to do peer cache or, throttling or, things, then yes, you want to control how that content gets trickled out to that client. But when that client is on VPN or not on VPN at all, and you still want them to get patched, well, let them get it wherever they can get it from. But once they're on your business network, then obviously you want to have a little bit more control over, where that client is getting their content from. I am trying to see if I can get, it's going to show how this works, but my client is not flagged as co-managed for some reason. And so I'm trying to see where my co-management settings are configured, because it's not getting them. So I've got a second machine here. Co-management is disabled. So what my goal here is, Bryan, is to spin one machine up on the business network, which this one is, which would mimic either on-prem or VPN. I don't have the infrastructure set up to demonstrate two different subnets going to different places, but just imagine that that's how we would do that. And then I want to connect this machine, a second machine, directly to the internet and bypass my on-prem network and show what that looks like. And you'll notice that it should look pretty similar, but just for the purposes of showing it, we're going to do that. But all of my stuff is running really slow. I need to just disable incoming video from you guys or something here, I think. How this works. Sorry, I don't normally do Teams meetings like this, so we're just winging it. Keep the questions coming.
Or just the trolling.
Yeah.
I mean, we were so Adam, off to the side, we were talking about boundaries, right? And so that's another key thing to talk about. And Riley and Bryan Mason were quite right. It's all about the boundaries, right? And if your boundaries are just a unmuddled shit show, then there's nothing we can do for you. You have to get your head around that. And have some amount of sanity, right? Like, to start with, right? If you're going to have VPN, when we go to the VPN scenario, like you need a boundary group that's reliably for your VPN, and then you get into fallback, right? If you're allowing clients to fall back to your default boundary group or neighbor group, like that all plays into this. And so I'm not sure that I have fully had my head around if you had a super complex scenario and you've decided to overlap boundaries. Like I just don't know. I don't know what you do. Just don't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think the general guidance. Obviously, we don't have best practices or anything, but
don't make me sick the best practices bot on you, Adam.
Yeah, but I mean, let's not get into the practice of overlapping boundaries, because that's just bad news. You're just asking for trouble trying to configure all of that stuff. I mean, that's awful.
Yeah.
And track down why your clients didn't get what you thought they were supposed to get and all those sorts of things. I mean, it's not good. So I guess let me ask the audience, does anyone not understand what we mean by overlapping boundaries? Does anybody want us to dig into, look at site boundaries and go over that? Or does everybody kind of have a general idea what we're talking about there? We won't publicly flog you, but we will tag you when we publish this to the interwebs that you didn't know. Or we can just do it, because I can't seem to get my, all of my whole lab is just awfully slow.
A steaming pile.
It is.
The one thing I will say about boundaries,
I think it's got that corona.
I've seen this catch people off guard, and Riley, you might pipe it in and tell me if you're seeing that too in some of the engagements you've had. Like, it goes back to like 1702, where they like made some changes and created the default boundary, and people, I've seen people still kind of get caught by that, right? They're like, oh, some stuff changed and I haven't really thought about it, and I just keep adding new roles. And you do have the concept of the default boundary group, and falling back to it is something that some people do need to still get. I've found a couple of people that still need to get their head around that.
Yeah, for sure. Especially because a lot of people will drop, like, say, their primary site server in that boundary group. And a lot of people have a DP role on that. And then all of a sudden, every client is coming back to corp or coming back to data center over T1s to get content. And you're kind of you're having a problem there.
Yeah.
So I have a very, very simple, AD site going on here. So it doesn't really, can't really do much here. But so in a production environment, so let's say that we potentially would have a second AD site, or at least another boundary that we'd create for our VPN clients, and would say, okay, so if a client is in, we'd create a new range, and we'd assign that range to a boundary group, and assign that group to a particular set of resources. So the idea here is that you want to look at your ranges that are part of your AD sites, or however you do it. So a lot of folks say, well, don't do AD site because you can't trust your networking guys, and they always screw it up because they also can put your, consolidate and collapse all your boundaries or all your subnets into the same AD site and screw you up. So you could look here. So I've got 10, or I got 5.1 and 6.1. So I could break each of these into their own boundary group. And so I could say all the clients from 5.1 would go to one boundary group, and 6.1 would go to another. And so, but if I put this one and this one into the same, well, then I'm going to overlap boundaries, because then that means that I've got clients from the 5.1, which are included in my Houston AD site. They're going to be hitting the resources that I've assigned to both of these boundary groups. So that's kind of what we're talking about, is overlapping boundaries. So you want to make sure that the IP ranges that you choose for your subnets for your boundary groups do not overlap. So you're not including the same ones in multiple places.
And what you're showing here, like what you have set up is like what I think we're saying is hard mode, right? Like you set up two different types of boundaries, and nothing in here really tells you what the hell's in Houston. So like you can't tell from here whether you just screwed something up.
Well, sort of, yes, that's true. So number one, I've got I've got AD site discovery, or I've got AD discovery enabled, and I've got it set up to auto create boundaries based on my discovery. And so that's what I've got going on there. I want to say this is it. Yeah. So this is where you configure that. So automatically create IP range boundaries for IP subnets when they're discovered. So, and then also auto create Active Directory site boundaries. So the two different ones you saw there, the IP subnets and the AD site subnets, were both auto generated by discovery. So if I were to delete them and then uncheck one of these, then I would only get one or the other. So so yeah, it's an optional either or kind of thing. You can do all of it, but like you're saying, if you want to keep it clean, pick one. I would hesitate to do to say, hey, go manually create them, but sometimes you do need to do that whenever you're trying to slice things up a certain way. But you have to be really careful because those network guys are freaking sneaky.
Yeah, and Riley just said what I was going to say, which is, so why don't you say it, Riley?
I enable the creation of ranges based on sites when I'm first setting up a new hierarchy, and then I turn that off. Yeah. And it's real easy.
Which is what I did. And let me explain why, and then you can tell me if you do it for different reasons, right? Which is, any way you slice it, the networking team is going to bone you. Like, it is going to happen. And so the question is how does that happen, and how do you want to deal with it? And the way that I've always chosen to deal with it is deployments will fail. And I don't like it, but they're going to screw something up, and deployments are going to fail. But usually it's not going to fail in a way that takes down my network. Right? We're going to deploy something to a new remote location, and they've added a new subnet in that location, and people are going to be like, hey, stuff's not getting there. This machine isn't getting this deployment it's supposed to have. And like, step one in the troubleshooting is, tell me what the IP address, what boundary is this thing in? And if I've done purely IP ranges, it's dead simple to do. It's really easy to figure out that range doesn't exist, or they did something weird.
Can I ask, in most organizations, do the networking teams generally play with AD sites and services?
I have never seen one.
Me neither.
Granted, I haven't seen every organization. I've never seen one. Only time I've seen it is when they're using info blocks, and they're doing an info blocks integrated site and services, which does get really, really nice. Not gonna lie, but that's the only time I've ever seen networking teams play with AD sites and services.
Also, Adam, what I would say to that point is that what we see in our environment is more of a deal where our network team will go stand up a bunch of new subnets at a particular site, and then they won't tell anyone, but they'll connect all the clients over to a new site, or to the new subnets, and they're not assigned to a particular AD site or to the wrong one, more specifically. And so then that's when we have to engage the AD team to go in, or the server team, whatever level of hierarchy you've got. But we'll get those guys to add the appropriate site to correspond to the new subnets that get generated. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. It ends up being it's a process question, right? It's not to me it's not a technical problem, right? Somewhere somebody has to have a list of subnets, and that needs to be maintained in ConfigMgr. I would love, right, when I did the first setup and somebody explained AD sites, I'm like, this is great. We should do the hell out of this thing. And I can make the networking people do it, right? And that went nowhere, right? It just didn't go anywhere. And so somewhere in your organization, you need a process for how do we want to identify boundaries. And if part of me says, if you want to do it in AD sites, then it's going to be your job, right? Like, it becomes your job to do it in AD sites instead of doing it in ConfigMgr, where you're specifying the individual IP ranges. In many orgs, they're going to tell you, no, we're not going to let you do that, and so then it's just going to fall to you. And you need to do your best to get your networking team, whoever's creating those subnets, to keep you in the loop. Like, that's the best I know how to do it. And there's reporting. Yeah. Go for it, Jonathan.
Sorry. I posted a link for it. You can monitor the DCs for clients that are appearing from subnets that aren't mapped, and basically alert and assign visible accountability based on that.
Nice. So you're kind of doing what the discovery is doing, comparing that to what's in ConfigMgr, and then alerting on the discrepancies.
And most orgs, most people don't, nobody wants to be the one that caused the problems, especially if you can very visibly assign, this is going to be the issue that this causes. Stop doing it, communicate with me, and we can get it fixed. And that's how you build the process. Otherwise, it's just they're whining about something that they need to put in, and it never gets done.
Yeah, I hear you. We did our best. At my org, I tried to do the best I could to be like, hey, why didn't this work? It's like, it's the networking, right? And what happened over time is people actually kind of grokked. The first thing I need to check in this scenario is the boundaries. And that's just where, for me, having all, like, doing the IP ranges made it really, really easy. We literally had, I want to say 300, how many ranges did we have? We had hundreds of them. We had a lot of ranges. It was crazy, but you could just look at it. You can be like, is this IP address in a known range? And it was very, very easy to figure that out.
Okay, so thank you for stalling again for me, Brian.
I can.
No, it's great. So, okay, what I'm discovering is my lab machines do not seem to be auto Azure AD joining, so they're not getting hybrid joined. So I need to hybrid join them, and I think I can do that with dsreg command, maybe, or at least just go and add my. What's my fastest way to do this? I've got Azure AD not working over here, and it's not working.
Fastest way is going to be dsreg cmd whack join.
Okay, that's what I was thinking.
In fact, that's really going to be the only way.
How about you just go ahead and give Riley just control of your computer? And
well, I mean, I think secretly what we were attempting to do here was to get Riley to do the session for us, and so that's what we've accomplished at this point. So we're excited. So by the way, Riley is a Microsoft former PFE, DSE, all-around amazing Microsoftie who we hang out with on the WinAdmins Discord channel. And if you're not on WinAdmins Discord, you can go to aka.ms/WinAdmins and join us there, because we hang out there frequently, and Riley dishes on all the dirt from Microsoft internal work.
I do not do that, because that's not allowed.
No.
But there is plenty of excellent people there that will help you figure out your problem, both people from Microsoft and people from the community.
Yes. And by the way, I told Brian that I had my lab probably working, and so he willingly jumped in on this endeavor with me with zero whatever. I didn't prove anything was before we started, but he knew it.
It was fully premised on this being a total train wreck.
Check status as well after you do the join. I didn't see if you were doing that or not, so just whack status.
First, that works. Okay, so because let's be honest, this is exactly what we would do in our real environments anyway. We would
scroll up. Well, these are 1903, right? Or
yeah, but I think they're not. I don't think my Azure AD Connect is working. I think
it should have been able to do an instantaneous join without Azure AD Connect needing to work.
Yeah, so something else has hosed them up. So let me try one of these guys, because I've got several different build states.
Maybe look for the one that's tagged working.
Yeah. Now here's the list. You want to figure out which one we should turn on next? Jeez.
Just all of them. See how much resources you got.
Yeah. Actually, I think one of these might work. We'll see. Thank you for bearing with us, everyone. Maybe you are. I don't know. People might just be dropping.
Dude, they were bearing with us from the start.
If you stuck in this long, you just falling asleep at the wheel, and you're just going to stick around till we disconnect you.
If you continue to have this problem, it's going to turn into a troubleshooting hybrid Azure AD join.
No, it's going to turn into, well, join us next time when we actually have something working.
Yeah, you need to open the chat. They're literally proof thinking this one.
So there's a debug mode, right? That you can do. Device cannot be opened.
No, you need to use psexec, run it as system. I recommend if you check the logs, the event logs, and look under Microsoft Windows AAD.
This one's good.
Oh wait, that one's good. That one's joined.
Okay. So I knew I had something working here. All right, good. The dates on and miscellaneous. Probably consuming.
If someone was trying to speak there, that was unintelligible.
Yeah, was anybody speaking?
I got some garbled.
I think it was just you.
Okay, that's quite possible.
Okay, so shut those guys down so I can get some resources back. But I've got a second one over here that should be in the same state. I'll start that guy up too. And okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to take a peek at the control panel, and we're going to verify that the machine is in fact co-managed. And let's see how this goes. All right. So yeah, okay. So you can see I've got 195 co-management capabilities, all that sort of stuff. Okay. So connection type currently intranet. All right. So for this machine, just assume that I'm telling you the truth, that it would work on the regular. It's on the domain and would work just fine on the domain. And so now we're going to connect it straight out to the interwebs, not on the domain. Okay, and then I'm going to, what I'm going to do, so I like to go the long way around. Going to restart the CCMexec service, which I don't think you have to do, but it's just going to give us a clean break here. Come on, typing is not working. Oh, almost.
Because you need to click your keyboard.
No, yeah, you're welcome for that. Yeah. Okay. All right, so at this point, we should be able to look at the client logs and see where we're pointing. Fairly certain. So what?
It should show up in the control panel there.
Right. Yes. As that, it will do that as well. Just trying to show both ways.
Wow. Okay.
But I don't really know what log it's going to do.
Trying to over it.
Oh, see, it still thinks it's intranet. That's not true. All right, so it should be client location, I think. Is that the right one?
Location services.
There's location services and there's client location. I just always, does anybody else just click through all of them that seem right until you find the right one?
I just start typing. I get kind of close sometimes.
Yeah.
I always
I
go
do
to
the same.
Google. I always go to Google and type in SCCM logs, and then go to the docs page, and then search for what I'm trying to find.
It's found an internet management point. It's found one.
Yeah. Yeah. So there we go.
Yeah, it's not Bing,
Missed
Jacob. I
that.
don't really want to keep my MVP that badly.
Current internet management point. All right. So let's go and check here and see if it tells us again in the client, in the control panel, because it should. Currently internet. All right. So
Yeah,
we are now cooking with gas. All right.
we're on the
So,
tubes.
Okay. So then let's go open up Software Center and see if we can get some stuff working here.
See, it was that easy. You just need to find one box that's working.
Well, I knew I
Type
could.
in a bazillion commands.
I know.
This-
Yeah.
This,
Yeah.
this totally works at scale, people. Totally.
We could have, if we had organized this, we could have demoed this in about, well, the length of Rob's blog post, probably. But hey, whatever. I mean, because that's yeah. It's not really that much more complex than what he's got in his blog post. We just made it more complex. All right, so now I'm waiting for Software Center to do whatever it's going to do to go through the interwebs and find all the things it's going to find. So, got to give it a minute. I think maybe. Come on, don't let me down here, please.
Yeah.
Well,
We
I mean,
really should just title this. We should just title this whole thing like preparation is highly overrated.
this is preparation age.
I literally spend,
Yes.
like when I did these engagements, I would literally spend 3 to 4 days just doing this stuff.
Really.
Well, so
That and fixing PKI.
if you've
I
watched,
can say, except at each step of the way, it's like, well, we need to talk to another team, and they hate us.
yeah. If anyone has ever watched any of the content that Steve Hosking and I have done on Intune.training, you'll know that, especially in our early versions of the videos, we never really got successful demos. We just got you close.
This should have worked.
Don't read a document, but we were just trying to have commentary and maybe demo some stuff. So anyway, that's kind of what we're doing here, I think, to some degree. But ultimately, when this loads, if this loads, I mean, I think I'm at the mercy of Teams and my poor internet and everyone working from home and all that sort of stuff. But eventually, I will see some applications load here and should be able to install one of them over the Cloud Management Gateway, over the internet. So in this scenario, this would be the equivalent to a machine running on VPN with split tunneling. Or, well, I mean, technically, this is a machine just floating out on the internet with nothing, with no VPN, no nothing, because technically it can't talk to anything. But the difference is very minimal in between an internet-only client that doesn't have any VPN connection enabled right now, or a client with split tunneling enabled. The client would be able to get to some domain resources, but then we're specifically telling it we want this traffic to go through the cloud. So if we attempt to install one of these things, maybe some of them aren't installed already. And so we should be able to go and see some log somewhere tell us where that's pulling it from. So it is the management point it's using. So you can see it's talking through the proxy, through the Cloud Management Gateway proxy, and then that proxy is actually talking to your internal management point to give it information. And then if we go and look at the content downloader logs, wow, these VMs suck. Come on. Somewhere, somehow they're going to work. Oh, it didn't work. It says flip back to install. Well, it's possible I don't have edge dev content published out onto that DP either. So there you go. So failed. But I mean, assuming we had all this configured correctly, this should just work. And whatever. So.
And because it should work, it did.
Yeah, just imagine that it did. Look, here we'll try recast tools because their stuff always works.
Son of Come on, installer.
Shout out to Recast Right Click Tools, the only company that would give you a shark onesie if you work for them.
See, I just want a shark onesie.
Yeah.
Yeah, why not? Anyway, yeah, I don't know why this isn't working, but that's the way life goes here. But ultimately, you kind of got to see the bits and pieces, right? So you're seeing the client talking over the management point. We talked about the fact that look at that. See, it's downloading. It's going to install. This is awesome. So let's see if we can find a log that has some info about that, huh? Which one's going to tell me what DP or where my content was coming from? Is that a CI downloader?
There are 3 that were just posted in the chat. So Content Transfer Manager, CAS log, or Data Transfer Service. Take your pick. They'll all have information.
There you go. So all we really want to see is verification that they're coming from where we think they're coming from. So
CAS.log is going to be your best place to look.
okay. Great. Wow. Okay, try that. All right, let's see what we got. That was found in the cache. Look at that. Woo! We did it. We got content from the Cloud Management Gateway, and it's downloaded, and it's doing things with it.
Magic.
It really is. So, I mean, that's kind of it. Hey, good job, Jonathan. You win the prize.
Yeah, totally, man.
Give me your address, and I'll send you some stickers with my face on it or something.
I want stickers with your face on it.
Well, I got a pile of stickers. Got all kinds of stuff. Man, the guys at the Austin user group gave me some new Texas PowerShell stickers. So I got this is the VM mug. So this is the VMware user group. Oh, it's nice and blurry. There you go. And I got the Austin TX PowerShell group, ATX PowerShell. Almost see that. Yeah. And then obviously Intune that training. Where's the co-management content? What are you talking about, Jake? Show your face. Jake's just throwing that out there and just gonna leave us hanging.
This is my new favorite. Damn it! It's not.
Yeah,
not doing it.
Background.
The background does. I guess there are some bugs to work out.
Jake, you missed the very first, middle, and end part where we did co-management and Cloud Management Gateway. Okay, so if we talk about co-management for just a moment, because really the co-management piece, we kind of glossed over that just a wee bit, but ultimately, if I was to publish a list of updates to my workstations now, so if I'd go create a software update group and publish those to.
But you're talking about co-management. So like.
Oh, if I went into Intune and configured a policy in Intune. Sorry. Yes. Right.
Yeah, I mean, like, exactly. If you're using co-management, I interpret that to mean I'm using co-management and I'm moving the software update slider to make Intune do it, and then there's no CMG involved. You're just literally using Windows Update for Business. But you still need, like, if you have a VPN running again, we go back to the whole split tunneling thing, right? Like if you're using co-management or just Intune straight, right? Or you're using Windows Update for Business with group policy, you really had better be frickin' split tunneling, because otherwise you're going to pull all that data twice, right? You're going to tunnel all that information from Microsoft into your organization and then across the VPN down to your client.
Right. And so, yeah, so if we talk about shifting our workloads and do the cloud, or do co-management and shift workloads, so this is where you do that. So if you want a lot more information about this and just apply this to co-management, go watch Intune.training. We've gone through a whole lot of these configuration options and stuff. That channel is specifically targeted to doing Intune only and not looking at ConfigMgr things, but it's the same concept. You simply are just going to go and create a profile. So this is just to configure Windows updates. So we can do co-management, and we can go and set our update ring settings. Now the difference here is that you are configuring things in a way that is much different than what you do in ConfigMgr. You don't have nearly the granularity over what you're allowing to have installed, because you're essentially saying, just give me updates when they become available, and all you get to do is set a deferral from the date that they get released to the channel that your clients are assigned to. So if I say I'm on semi-annual channel, then you're basically on the regular general release ring. So every patch Tuesday, you're going to get some updates, and then you can say, okay, so now ignore the feature update bits for a minute here and just look at the quality updates and things. So then you're setting a deferral time for those guys, but then you're essentially just telling the client when it can install the latest round of Windows updates. Just like if you were configuring those on your home PC and going into settings and configuring your Windows Update options, right? So, hey, look, right-click tools installed.
Yeah.
So if we were to go into our Windows Update settings here, I should just go ahead and shortcut that. Go to Windows Updates.
And while you do that, like what I like to talk about those settings, like it's just enough, right? Like I call that just enough sort of administration right? Because when you're using Intune, you're specifically limiting yourself to just Windows 10, right? It's just workstations, just Windows 10. Yes, I know Windows 7 was supported for a while, but and maybe 8.1, but shut up. You're really limiting yourself just to Windows 10. And Windows 10 is from the ground up cumulative updates, right? Like there's really nothing to choose. You're either going to apply this month's cumulative update, or you're not ever going to apply updates again. So yes, it's a loss of granularity, but I'd argue it doesn't matter. There's two parts where I think one part for sure where it matters a lot. I think we're going to talk about feature updates in a second, right? Like,
yeah, might as well.
That's okay. Yeah, I mean, so when it first came out, my biggest gripe with it was, well, okay, great. I don't really want it. I don't want to micromanage updates anymore. Just fine. Just whatever the hell you want to install, just go install it. But feature updates, I don't care how much they try to tell me. Feature updates are just a different animal for a while, until I go through like 5 years of just rock solid releases where I don't even notice that you've deployed a FU to me. Then I'm going to care. And so I really that was the pushback, and they did that. I don't know if you have if you're in your tenant with that public preview, but
I do.
Added. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So they've gone and split that out, and that's great. And then the other feedback I've given them is, part of me wants to say, I'd like to see the non-OS updates split out too, like .NET and I mean, .NET's the big one, but there's other applications where I might say, okay.
Here's the question: are you not going to patch? There have been multiple .NET vulnerabilities over the past several years. Are you not going to patch those?
Well,
it's not an option not to patch.
Well, but but there are definitely okay. So there's I think there's the that pipe dream of well, we should do this, but then there's the reality of, yeah, but we work for a bunch of people that have differing opinions about how this stuff needs to be treated. And so depending on what sector you work in and who your bosses are and stuff, you get your hands tied a lot on what can and can't be pushed, because you've got bad application practices. You've got things that are poorly built that you still support, that were built before most people's children were born and stuff. Like, why are we still doing this? And so I think that's at least part of the risk or the scary factor here. And I know that the ConfigMgr team is doing a lot to help us get past that with, like, so look at desktop analytics. So, that's the whole thing there is designed to show you device readiness and help you deal with compatibility for drivers and applications and things, and help you feel more comfortable with, hey, look, this stuff all looks good. Why not push out the updates to your business? But still, the business still has been bitten a few too many times to be okay with just letting everything roll out. Yeah. The feature updates, I mean, I love feature updates. I'm probably the biggest proponent of feature updates, at least in our immediate community. I like in letting them just happen with servicing, but doing it this way, where you say, just install them when they become available. That's a big trust factor. That's a big leap for most companies, because, I mean, we're going to spend a couple of months testing applications and slowly rolling this out to different rings of users until we feel comfortable, and looking at DA and doing the pilot rings and things like that. So this new feature updates preview is supposed to, and we're still, I've got some issues open with the product group and Bryan and I as well. So we are trying to make sure that this works properly, but essentially you should be able to configure this policy to say, I want to lock a particular set of targeted devices. So you configure the policy and then you deploy this, you assign this policy to a particular set of workstations. And when you assign this to those workstations, then those workstations will always be on that particular ring or feature update until you move it. So I could go and create a group of all of my, high risk users, and I say, okay, I'm locking you guys in on 1809, and then I can make me another ring that's my, fly by the seat of the pants guys, and they're going to get latest and greatest every time. Or I probably wouldn't even configure a policy for them because they're just going to get it automatically. But so what this lets you do is target a particular feature update to a particular group of devices, and it locks them in on that feature update, so that then when you configure your Windows Update rings, then you can safely deploy all of the other updates to those devices, but you can specifically choose a feature update to leave those devices on until you're ready to move forward. But yeah, so when you do co-management, though, you are definitely kind of taking your hands off the wheel a little bit and saying, yeah, so it's Windows 10. There's only a handful of updates, and when's the last time you didn't push them all out every month? Like, let her rip and go. And so you set up your policies, deploy those to your clients, co-management takes over and lets you handle things. If you want more control, slide the slider back over for some of your machines, and you have to actually configure it into pilot at that point. But you say, okay, I'm gonna not allow those devices to get updates from here. So anyway, I've been kind of rambling on about that, but that's
yeah. Can we get back to Rampart again?
What?
No one. Is that joke not landing? Riley got me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got nothing. Nothing.
Point being, co-management. I creating that feature update and allowing us to, I think that is a hurdle removed in terms of remote, dealing with software updates in a remote user situation. Right. If you already have, if you're ready to be able, if you're set up to be able to move that slider, I think it is actually a real, I don't know. I doubt people are going to do it right now, given the situation, but I think it is an option, but it still needs split tunneling.
Yeah. I don't know that we had a plan for this, but if we had to create a plan for what this was supposed to be, the closing argument here, it's like, look, you have options, and you should explore those options and choose
Yeah.
the options that are most beneficial to your organization. If you're
Yeah.
concerned over Cloud Management Gateway, or really specifically cloud distribution points, is bandwidth, talk to Rob York. Talk to anybody. Post it out on Twitter and say, how much
Yeah.
does a cloud distribution point cost?
Or just shut up. Or just
Yeah,
shut up.
Just do it. Just turn it on and just.
He actually replied to us to the thread and posted all this stuff. And I think the killer for me on that whole CMG cost thing is you can only just put a dollar value. You can put a value at it and just be like, it stops at this value. So if you're worried, just put a value in it and you won't go beyond it.
Yeah, you can configure your subscription and things to to block them from costing you money, too much money or whatever. But if it's a difference between keeping your devices secure, allowing your devices to get content while you're in this quarantine state of not being able to, everybody's working from home and you may or may not have reliable VPN, or your network guys are not playing nice, and you can still manage your devices. I mean, so we've kind of been talking about this from a perspective of, so you want, when a client is connected on VPN, you want it to behave a certain way. Well, let's talk about it for a minute of like, well, what if your users aren't on VPN and you still want to manage them? Well, this is great. This is a great option for it. Cloud Management Gateway and Cloud Distribution Point lets you do all of the things to that device, whether or not they're connected to your business network, period. They do not have to be on VPN. They do not have to be connected physically to your location, but you still get to have full control over those devices and do whatever you need to do to them. And that should be your goal, is manage any device anywhere, have full control over it. Use the tools that exist in these products to do that. And if you haven't been looking at this, this should be that wake-up call to say, you know what, we should probably spin up some test cases of this stuff because it's really affordable. You're not going to break the bank, I guarantee it. Go do it.
Yeah, awesome. I like what you're laying down there, right? Like, and I'm going to try and summarize it, which is the no VPN option, right? You don't have a VPN, or you just don't trust your users to turn on the VPN, then CMG or co-management and moving them over to software updates to Intune, that's one of those are your best options. Go down one of those roads.
Yeah, and here's even kind of the next piece of that is, look, there's a whole lot of questions about hybrid Azure AD join and Azure AD join, and this whole deal of, well, I still need to I need to do hybrid because I need to access XYZ resources. Okay, well, let me stop you and ask you, have you tried doing it with just Azure AD join? Have you tried to Azure AD join a device and then have it on your network and access company resources? Because it works and you could do it. And there's a simple thing that you can do for some of the things. So if you enable Hello for Business, which is really a thing you should be doing as well, you can enable a hybrid key trust. Once again, go to intune.training, look up hybrid key trust, or I think it's Hello for Business is the session. And we talk about enabling a hybrid key trust so that your devices can pass through your Azure AD credentials to your domain. It syncs those credentials to your on-prem resources so that when you try to browse to a file share and you've used Hello to log in, it doesn't prompt you for your domain password or domain credentials in order to access those resources. So if you haven't looked at that, because look, if you do that, you don't even need VPN. You just your machine is. Well, I mean, you could get away with it. You do have to have VPN. Sorry, you could be Azure AD joined physically on your business network, or you could be Azure AD joined with the VPN off your company network and still get to company resources. But it opens up the opportunity for you to ship out boxes to users because you can't do hybrid autopilot from the user's house. But you can do regular autopilot.
And not to mention that hybrid Azure AD join brings in with it its host of complications. And I've worked with a couple customers that have looked very hard at doing straight Azure AD joins. And for them, and when we did our pilot of it, it worked great. Their main line of business application was SAP. And day one, less than 6 hours in, we autopiloted a device and it installed their SAP client, and they connected it to the wireless, and they launched it. No authentication prompts, no nothing, just worked out of the box because you get a Kerberos ticket. NTLM for authentication, for the most part, works. So there's Azure AD Join is not cloud only. Azure AD Join can still be cloud hybrid without having to worry about, oh, I have these legacy applications over here. 9 times out of 10, those legacy applications will probably work.
Yeah, and from what I was just showing you, so if you're doing, so we showed how you can take an on-prem resource and you can manage it in Intune, but you can also take an Intune-only resource, an Azure AD Join machine, and you can co-manage it back into ConfigMgr. So you still get all your visibility. You still get the opportunity to manage those devices and do things to them, even though they're not part of your, they're not regular domain join. So, you know, you still got an opportunity to do it. I want to say that I've got several machines in my lab here that exist in that state, that I've got somewhere in here. Some of these I want to say that, like these machines, I built these for my kids, so these are hybrid, or these are Azure AD joined machines that I've enabled co-management on, and now I've got the ConfigMgr client running on them, but they don't have VPN. They're just sitting on my home Wi-Fi.
It's important we step back for a second and we observe the fact that Adam has his kids' laptops managed by Intune. just want to make note of that.
I needed to have a real world test case for doing this stuff, and so this was a perfect way to do it. It's great. It's wonderful. So anyway,
so I want to interject here, right? Because you guys had a whole bunch of stuff which is like awesome. Like, don't get me wrong, I love it.
Like more sessions from here, because we could go on all day.
But part of why this whole topic comes up, the reason we're talking is because people have this, all of a sudden there's this problem, right? And so I kind of doubt that if right now you're taking down your VPN connection, right? If you're taking down your connection into your environment, that you're going to go whip out Azure AD Join and completely re-architect. And so hopefully in somewhere in all of this mess, you figured out like a quick fix to stop the bleeding, right? And if you don't have VPN at all, I think like CMG, right? If you're a config manager and and your VPN just isn't reliable, I think your quickest shot is go get CMG. And if you want to go figure out all the other stuff later, great, go do that. But I think without too much pain, you can get a CMG. And you know what? Holy crap! If you only need it for a few months just to stop the bleeding, then just go stop the bleeding. You can. It's not a one-way thing, right? So if you're literally taking down your network right now, shut up about the costs. Just tell your boss, I can fix this. We'll worry about that stuff later. Just go do it.
And and the costs have been, it's to the point that I had a customer that was in disbelief about how cheap it was.
Exactly. It's
like,
so it's the value proposition is, do you want me to fix the network now, or do you want to bitch about like whatever it is, like hundreds of dollars a month or whatever? Like, just stop. Stop. I can fix this. We'll deal with the budget later. Go put up with CMG. It's not that hard.
I mean, okay, so look, in reality, I'm not using anything on my I don't even know how to go check the costs. I mean, how much does this stuff cost anyway?
It's right built in. It's built in.
Cost and billing. There it is.
There's a cost.
So I've got MSDN subscription. So it tells me every time I log in, like, oh, you got credit and everything. So I've got several different resources and things spinning up in here, and I guarantee you my CMG is not even remotely. I mean, I'm not using this for really anything, but just the pure existence of the CMG, you'd think, all right, that should burn up some resources. I think the thing that's using up all of my dollars is the fact that there it is. This is a good idea. All right, so an idle CMG for this month has cost me $30 just sitting there. So if I go back to the previous month, last invoice, let's see what it was. There you go. So just an idle CMG sitting there, not really doing anything. Cost me $63 just to sit there. So yeah, I mean,
quit your pitching, right?
You're running a business, like
the value
you're not
proposition.
monitoring the electricity required for all the old CRT monitors sitting on your desks at this point. I mean, come on.
Yeah. So I think that's right. I'm just trying to think of if I were admin right now and my networking team came over and they said, here's the freaking graphs. I need you to fix this right now. Again, if you don't trust people to connect to the VPN, CMG, shut up about the cost. Just go make it happen. If you have a VPN that you feel people are reliably going to connect to, then I think you get into the, you need to make sure you got to get split tunneling enabled, right? That has to be your focus. Go make that happen.
So we've got a question from Ben. Hey Ben, thanks for joining, Ben. Okay, so if the devices are already out the door, and we set up the CMG, will they connect to it? And the answer really is if the device can contact ConfigMgr, hopefully over your VPN, to know about the CMG, then yes, they should be able to know about that the CMG exists at that point. But they have to be able to talk to your management point first to be able to get the configuration. So they have to be able to talk to your domain. If they're already out in the wild and just floating out there, then kind of in trouble. Does that answer your question there, Ben?
And if you've co-managed them and you're really, you're up a creek without a paddle, it is certainly possible to push out something that will make them aware of a CMG. But best option is to VPN it.
Yep. Mirko, this is not my hotel room. This is just my office/guest room. But thanks for joining, Mirko. You're awesome. By the way, Mirko, MVP. What's up, dude? You're awesome. I think that's who that is.
Yeah. Mirko asking the questions that shouldn't be asked. He brought up like active setup in a Windows virtual desktop thing. He's like, well, why is this worth with active setup? And they just politely ignored him. So we talked about so you don't want to rely on your VPN. I think if you do rely on a VPN, again, the quick hitter I think is making sure you get split tunneling enabled, and then go sort out your boundary groups, make sure that they make sense, make sure you have a boundary group specifically for your VPNs, VPN IP ranges, make sure that they're not falling back to some other stuff to get content, and then go enable that prefer cloud resources, right? I think that has to be the quick hitter. And I'm not saying that's like permanent, fine. Then go figure out some other stuff, whether that's an always on VPN to fix that hole. I need to make sure people are connected, or you set up a CMG, or you go co-management. Those are all great things. But if you have a VPN and it's reliably connected, go fix that problem to stop the bleeding.
Yeah. And Mirko's bringing up some good points. So the cloud distribution point part of the CMG is the piece that is the pricey bit here. So that's it's the content, right? So you spun up a VM and you're hosting content on that VM resource, and then your clients have to consume that content and do the transfer the data. So it's all of those pieces.
And I would argue.
Go for it. Well, here's what I would say, right? If you're worried about that, because you're right? Like it's the content cost. You shouldn't be worried about it in the first place. It's so freaking cheap in the first place. Don't worry about it. But let's say you were, then just don't push shit up there, right? Because the whole point of setting it is that they're not going to pull software updates, right? So if you don't publish, if you don't publish,
say that again.
Right. The whole point of talking about CMG in this scenario is to get software updates up there, right? And so the whole point of this is you set up a CMG and they won't pull data from the CMG. So just don't push any data up to your CMG. Right. Now apps will fail, right? Apps are going to fail. If there's some non-OS task sequences, I don't know if those work over a CMG. Some other stuff will fail, but again, we're talking about stopping the bleeding. Who gives a shit? What I care about is that Patch Tuesday happens and I don't take down my VPN, right? So set up a CMG. Don't put any content on it, and get over your just get over it.
Yeah, and so that's really a very, very valid.
Yeah, just want to make an important point on what Bryan was saying there. Don't put the CMG in your default boundary group, or not in your like a lot of customers will have a group, distribution point group they distribute all their content to. Don't put the CMG in that group.
Don't do that. Don't do stupid.
Basically, because then you'll be wondering why you have 2 terabytes of content up there that you're now paying money for.
Yeah. And again, in the whole triage situation, don't put content. There's no reason. You do not have to put content up there, and you will get and you will stem the bleeding from software updates. You're muted, Adam. It's a little microphone icon, and it has a little slash through it, and you usually click it. The left mouse button, buddy. The left one. No? Oh, jeez.
He's gone now. I don't know what happened.
This, which is great because he was doing the recording, so that's how this is going to work.
No,
right?
it's still recording in theory. It won't stop recording. It will just land in his stream or send it to him as a DM after the fact.
All right.
Boo. Hey, can you hear me?
We can now.
Okay, I don't know what happened, but I was mid stream there, and it just died. So, yeah, whatever. I mean, we've been pushing it for a while here, but yeah, I mean, so I don't even know what you said, Riley, but I mean, I think it's basically the idea here is that
he said you're a lovely looking man, and he just
set up the CMG, set up co-management first, so that your clients, and it enables split tunneling so that your clients can go to Microsoft to get their content.
Yeah.
And then they can still pull their content from your DP locally if they need to, but don't force them to get Windows updates, because that's really the main thing that you're worried about anyway.
It'll stop the bleeding.
Yeah.
Right. Like, unless you're deploying CAD, huge applications, it's probably not going to take down your VPN. Right, because you don't do that. Like your whole organization, Lord willing, isn't downloading the same app at the same time, but they are going to do that for updates.
And I'm just going to say it right now: if you're installing CAD off of the CMG, your users are probably going to have a bad time.
It would work, but man,
I don't even
better
know.
ways to use everyone's time, right?
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, just send them a CD and move on, right?
A carrier pigeon with a USB stick.
No, turn their laptop into a DP, ship the CD with pre-staged content on it.
Yes.
And that they can deploy it through CCM.
Yes. Yes, and also don't put your CMG in your all DPs boundary group. That is correct. Do not do that. Bad news.
I said boundary. I meant DP's group.
Yeah.
It's late here.
No, it's correct. All right. Well, we have trudged through this one, Bryan. I think we didn't fail as spectacularly as I was anticipating, but I feel like.
You want to try harder? Because I can fail harder.
Well, I mean, if you want.
No, I'm good.
What else do we want to do? Okay, so I mean, we got. I can't believe how many people showed up for this thing. I think at some point we had almost 20 people in here. Still got 13 folks hanging on. So
Nate, this is just my everyday drink. This is just Jim Beam. This is like low end Jim Beam.
When he puts the shark on, he likes to feel fancy, so he has the fancy glass. So I plan to try to get this video uploaded as soon as I can. I'll probably just host it on.
We never asked the question why. Why would you do this?
No, we really didn't. I just felt like I needed some people to talk to.
Yeah, and I do want to just make a quick statement. I'm not here in official capacity. Nothing I say is representative of the views of my employer. I'm supposed to say that when I'm being recorded
all the time.
Nice.
My views are not, representative of respectful human beings. So just want to
Well,
get that
so-
out there. Normal
So I don't know
people.
about you guys, but I mean, I really enjoy this format and just being able to just have a chat. So if you guys, want to do this again and you got a topic you want us to cover, let us know. We'll see if we can swing some more.
I thoroughly enjoyed the complete lack of preparation this took.
It has come from
great.
like 8 months of Intune.training, no prep, to be able to feel this comfortable doing this.
Adam, I would love to see,
Yes.
the Sysman squad do something like this, but for that, I guess.
Oh, that'd be like, so basically a tips and tricks type thing where we could just have everybody just do tips and tricks type live session like this. That'd be cool.
Yeah, rotating live sessions.
Yeah,
Everyone
so
can
check out
take a turn at failing.
sysmansquad.com if you want to join us and do stuff. It'd be awesome. Love to
We
have
could have Ronzi talk about IPv6.
Yeah, just make stuff up there too.
Go
Yeah,
down that rabbit hole.
We can spend no less than 25% of our time trying to figure out how to share screens.
Yeah, we could do that. Wow, that worked really well. Huh.
See,
So
I didn't realize
that was
until
an actual
today.
hyperlink.
I didn't realize until today that this whole background thing wasn't available to most people.
Yeah, it's not. So
You're on the Insider, right? For Teams.
I'm on something.
but
Yeah,
Bryan and
wow.
I have been messing,
Once
messing
again,
around with,
my
Marco
views are not
Cam.
reflective of my employer. I am on something right now.
Yeah.
So anyone currently the MVP summit's going on. So some people have this awesome ability to swap their background with Teams. I'm actually doing it with third. Ooh, look at that! You can't even see my finger. I just need to blur that out. I'm actually using like XSplit or Video, some third-party solution. Everyone's like, "How are you doing that?" I was like, "I don't know. I've been doing it for a long." But I think it's Teams Insider. You can swap instead of just blur.
Yeah, so I've been using SparkoCam to do mine, and had some fun in the virtual bar at MVP Summit this week. You can put on fake glasses and all sorts of fun background things.
The virtual bar, is that as opposed to the BYO bottle? Bring your own bottle?
No, it's hey, sessions are over. Let's drink and turn on cameras. And yeah, that was someone set up. Was it stream or what's the other? I don't know, the competing video chat thing where you can do all the faces up at once. So we had about 10 or 15 of us, and you could see everybody's cams instead of just the 4 up like Teams does.
Which one? Zoom.
Yeah, that's one.
Zoom.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Zoom has the live backgrounds too. You can change out your backgrounds. You can do animated ones, all that stuff. But Teams is way better because it does more.
I want GIF backgrounds. I know this feature isn't all the way rolled out yet. But I already want GIF backgrounds. Just like I want GIFs and software.
You can do that in Zoom. Just saying. There you go. Perfect. All right, before this just really gets blown out, we should end it. Thank you all for everyone who stuck around. I have no idea how the transcripts work once we save this thing and publish it out, but anyway.
Make better choices in the future.
Thank you very much for hanging with us, and thanks Bryan and Riley for jumping in and helping co-host. So
Riley really brought the respectability to this thing.
Yeah, I think so. All right, adios. See ya.
Good evening.
Stop recording.
Yeah. Well, I was done recording.